In these stories, when you hear this cuckoo, turn the page. This story is called Gertrude Gooseberry. Gertrude Gooseberry was prim and very, very clever. She had come to stay in a sweet little cottage in Blackberry Dell for a holiday. She brought lots of books to keep her occupied. Miss Gertrude did not like to be idle, even when she was on holiday. "Idle hands," she said, "get up to mischief." She was quite right. The Chive and Blackberry children were already getting into mischief. They were idle and bored. You see, the kindly old schoolmaster, Tobias Turnip, had had rather a nasty accident whilst taking the schoolchildren on a nature walk. He had slipped on a twig and broken his leg. There was no one else to take his place in the school. The Blackberry and Chive children became more mischievous, and their poor parents became more worried. What could they do? The garden gang all had a meeting to see what could be done. It was Mark Marrow who suggested that they should go to visit Gertrude Gooseberry to see if she could help. The next morning, Mark Marrow, Oliver Onion, and Roger Radish set off up the hill to Gertrude's cottage. It was a lovely day, and Gertrude Gooseberry was reading in the shade of a lilac tree. "Good morning," she said. "Can I help you?" They looked at each other shyly. Then Oliver Onion blurted out the whole story. "I will need to think for a while," Gertrude said, after Oliver had finished his unhappy tale. "But first, I will make a nice cup of tea. Sit down, all of you." They sat down quickly, like 3 naughty children, and waited for the tea to arrive. It was not long before Miss Gertrude reappeared with a tray on which was a steaming pot of tea and a great pile of hot, buttered toast. She poured the tea and handed round the toast. It was delicious, and the 3 friends looked at Gertrude admiringly. "Well now," she said, when they had all finished eating, "about these naughty children. Would you like me to teach them? It would be a pleasure to me, and it would help you out of your difficulties." The 3 friends were so delighted that at first they were speechless. It was Mark Marrow who eventually managed to stammer, "Thank you so much. How kind of you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're so pleased. Thank you. We are delighted. Thank you. Thank you." "I will start immediately," Gertrude said, and she marched down the hill to the school. Here, the ink-throwing, rubber-bouncing, milk-spilling, scribble-writing, paper-tearing, book-throwing, chair-banging, ruler-wobbling, fighting children were leaping around the classroom, quite unaware of her approach. 5 minutes later, you could have heard a pin drop in the school. In 10 more minutes, the mess had been cleared up. The children were washed and neat, and school had begun. The children were so interested in the work Gertrude Gooseberry gave them that they stopped being mischievous and became very studious. They all worked hard and begged her to stay forever. She agreed, and Tobias Turnip retired happily. When the music stops, turn the cassette over.
And this story is called Belinda Blackcurrant. Belinda Blackcurrant was a sweet little thing. Everybody liked her. She always had a happy, smiling face. But one thing worried her father and mother. There was no one in the garden of her own age, and they felt that sometimes Belinda seemed a little lonely, although she never complained. Belinda was not only sweet and happy, but she was very clever and helpful. She had lots of uncles and aunts, quite a number of older cousins, and hundreds of baby cousins, and often went to help them if they were busy or ill. One day, Belinda went to visit her cousin Beatrice, only to find her in bed with a heavy cold. She quickly cleaned the house, tidied Beatrice's bed, made her lots of hot drinks, and by the time she had to leave in the evening, Beatrice was sitting up in her little bed, feeling very much better. Another time, when Belinda's mother had to go out for the day, she made some shortbread, flapjacks, iced buns, a fruit flan, chocolate cake, and some sausage rolls. Then, when she had finished, she carefully washed each spoon and bowl, leaving the kitchen as clean and bright as a new pin. When her mother got home, feeling very tired, she was delighted to see all the baking that Belinda had done for her. Instead of having to spend the rest of the afternoon working in her kitchen, she was able to sit quietly by the fireside with her feet up, drinking a nice cup of tea. Belinda was very good at looking after children, too. She often took her young cousins to the park. She bought them ice creams and sometimes crisps, and if they were very, very good, she would take them for a ride on a large boat, round and round the boating pool. All this time, Belinda was still lonely. She would have liked a little house of her own, because she was a very good housekeeper. But her mother and father did not like the idea of her living alone, and wished that she could find a little friend. Then it happened. One night the garden was struck by a terrible thunderstorm. Rain and wind lashed the plants and trees in the garden. As Belinda stood there with her hands over her ears, suddenly, over the wall from the next-door garden was blown the most handsome blackcurrant she had ever seen. His name was Bernard. It was love at first sight. They looked at each other for many minutes and then went off hand in hand to see Belinda's parents, who were delighted that at last Belinda had found a friend. Bernard and Belinda decided to be married the very next week, and everyone was overjoyed. Friends and neighbours built Belinda's dream cottage in the corner of the garden. The church was decorated with beautiful flowers, and the choir chives practiced the wedding hymns over and over again, just to make sure that everything would be perfect for Bernard and Belinda's wedding. At last the great day dawned. The sun shone, the birds sang, and the sky was bright blue. The church was full of delighted people, and the choir chimes sang better than they had ever done before. When the smiling couple at last appeared in the church doorway, everyone knew that Bernard and Belinda would live happily ever after.